New coronavirus infections have risen in the United States in recent weeks, prompting California to impose fresh restrictions, including a temporary ban on all indoor activities like restaurants and entertainment. So, what will this mean for the US economy? Joining me to discuss is Edward Stringham. He is the president at the American Institute for Economic Research. Edward, great to talk to you. When it comes to the US economy, it seems as though things are getting worse before they get better. What's your view on the shape of the recovery?
Yeah, it's been very disappointing to many people. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta is going to be updating it's called nowcasting. They basically say, what do we know about the quarter two GDP? And current estimates are GDPs will have fallen by 35%, which is just unprecedented. Obviously, we've got all of these record job losses, unemployment. So that's very, very disappointing. Obviously, on the plus side, though, there is some room for optimism. The stock markets, a lot of people say, well, why are things going so bad, but stocks are doing so well? Well, and a lot of people blame Wall Street, but stock prices are the best indicator of future profitability of corporations. And investors are saying that it looks like things can get up, back and running. So the fact that markets are recovering, I think, is a great thing. Another great sign is the VIX, which is the implied probability of fluctuations. That happens to be correlated with coronavirus. And as the coronavirus deaths have been going down, so too has the VIX number. So that went from a record high of, I think it was 80 in March. Now it's back down to 30 or so. So I think that markets are showing this glimmer of hope, and people are hoping to get back to work.
So when do you think we're going to get to the trough when it comes to the data? I mean, when's going to be the peak unemployment? And secondly, on your point about markets, do you think, therefore, that US stocks can continue to log fresh record highs?
I would say so, actually. Yeah, obviously markets could go down, but the fact that they've been slowly recovering as the data about the coronavirus has been improving, I think, is a very good sign. The news, if you listen to the average reporter, people are always, I would say, in some cases, being alarmist. And now the focus has been on new cases, but a lot of that's simply attributed to more testing. Previously, we didn't have a lot of testing. There were a lot of unreported cases. And so as we have more tests, there's more cases. The great news is in the US and most other countries, I've been looking at the data, the death rate has been plummeting. So the number of people who are dying as an absolute number is going down steadily. Very, very good news. And then as obviously you have more known tests that come out positive, that means that the actual case fatality rate of the coronavirus is much, much lower than we previously thought.
Now, we learned that the US budget deficit came in at a record $864 billion in June. Clearly, there's been a massive amount of monetary and fiscal stimulus in these unprecedented times. Can policies like these mitigate the effects of closing many businesses?
Yeah, so they're trying to do a counter-cyclical policy. We've got this virus, and then also the government response, I think, is actually to blame for closing so many businesses for so long. It was originally a 2 weeks to slow the spread, where we need to flatten the curve so the hospitals don't get overrun. And then that gradually transformed into, oh, we're going to have this indefinite lockdown. And so many businesses can weather a 2-week shutdown, but at 4 months going on, some of the great businesses of all time, Brooks Brothers, clothing, 200-year-old history, just declared bankruptcy this week. So the government is putting a lot of pressure on those businesses. At the flip side, they're now saying, okay, well, we're going to do stimulus. And that's been taking various forms. One is the government's going to spend a lot of money. They're going to loan money to small businesses, going to loan money to large businesses. And that's going to try and counteract the effects of these lockdown policies. The problem is many of these policies actually have been poorly thought out. And the one that a lot of people point to is the CARES Act pays workers $600 per week extra in regular unemployment insurance. And so these people are making more money by not working than working. And part of the CARES Act and some of these forgivable loans said, oh, we want the businesses to keep people on payroll. Well, they're having a difficult time getting these people on payroll. So that's now further exacerbating states' unemployment insurance pools. And that's going to be bringing up a lot of bills for the taxpayer. That's going to be charged to the average person in the future.
Now, former Fed Chair Ben Bernanke said this week that what the US government really needs is help for state and local governments. And this was the mistake that was made previously during the Great Recession that prevented the economy from recovering. I mean, what are your thoughts about these comments?
It's very interesting that Powell is expanding the scope of the Federal Reserve. Historically, the Federal Reserve was just a bank for banks. So the banks were the ones who did the loans and assessing individual risk of who should get loans when, or the bond markets, individual investors were assessing the risk of whether a company can pay back the loan, and that default rate is baked into the interest rate of the loan. Now, the Federal Reserve is explicitly saying we are going to make direct lending to corporations. We're going to now be making potentially direct lending to states and municipalities. So it's totally changing the nature of the Fed. Just a few years ago, when they would ask Bernanke and Yellen and all of those others, say, hey, have you ever thought about bailing out the states? They said, absolutely not. That's not our purview. It's not part of our job. And now the government, Fed, is lending to corporations. It's actually throwing a huge amount of uncertainty in markets. It's not having lenders or bond investors assess risk in the bond market. And as a result, we don't know for now bonds whether the interest rate is accurately determined by investors' assessment of whether the company is a good bet or not, or whether simply they're getting a government loan. So the idea that the government's going to be lending to individual corporations, I think, is very worrisome. Even more worrisome is the idea that they're going to now think about, in a certain sense, bailing out the states, bailing out municipalities.
So what do you think should be done instead? If it's not a focus so much on monetary and fiscal stimulus, what is the solution to kind of reinvigorate the US economy once again?
I think a big problem with the lockdowns over the last few months is many public health officials had this assumption that, oh, the economy is really not that important. Schools are not that important. We can just put things on hold. Well, the economy is it's robust, but it's delicate. There's a lot of moving parts. Small businesses need to be in business, to stay in business. A lot of them are at the brink of failure at any given time, especially during normal times. But you push them over the edge in this case. A lot of these companies are going to be permanently shuttered forever. In the United States, 41% of African American owned businesses have become bankrupted by the lockdowns. And, this is a major, major problem. The Federal Reserve and the Treasury, they're saying, oh, well, we can just step in and we'll provide liquidity, we'll provide loans. They're fundamentally transforming the economy into this one where the government is playing a huge, huge role. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think people need to be thinking about the principles that have had kept our economy running so long, which is markets, and letting the private sector get to work, letting the private sector innovate, do the things that they usually do, rather than say, okay, Powell can just step in and give everybody money, or we're going to have all these forgivable loans. This has been tremendously disruptive, and I think we need to be really thinking about the health of the economy, the health of businesses to let people work.
All right, Edward, thank you so much for your time and for joining us on IGTV.
Thank you so much.
That was Edward Stringham, President at the American Institute for Economic Research. I'm Victoria Scholar, and thank you so much for watching IGTV.
For more videos like these, subscribe to our YouTube channel, IG UK, and make sure to follow us on Twitter. We're at IGTV.